Hey, Jesus fans, welcome to True North Podcast, where we grow closer to God together. This podcast was brought to you by Solid Rock Church in Irving, Texas, and our host, Pastor Ed Snyder. To find out more about this podcast, visit our website at truenorthdfw.org. Now let's join Pastor Snyder in a new direction and a new destination.
And welcome, everybody, to another episode of True North Podcast with yours truly, Pastor Snyder. We're excited about this episode coming up, Chapter 2 of our new book, Control the Beast. We're going to be talking about starve the beast. In other words, control or clean up your environment. And so it's going to be an exciting episode. Don't go away. Stay with us. We want to say thank you to all of our new listeners. Our audience is growing, and it's absolutely amazing. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, so last week we started off this new Control the Beast series going along with our brand new published book, Control the Beast, 20 years worth of research, teaching professionally on the subjects of anger management, relationships, cleaning up our environment. In other words, triggers. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But just for a review, we started last week with the power of understanding that beast that is within us, that is uncontrollable at times and causing us perhaps some problems we just really don't want, but can't figure out how to get rid of this beast. And so we're helping you right here on True North Podcast with Pastor Snyder. So again, we want to just review the power of understanding is something that is tremendously powerful in your life. When you understand the who, the what, the where, the how, when you understand where this person is coming from, what they're a little bit about their background, why they do what they do, and get that understanding, it helps us deal with the difficult person a whole lot better. And so, again, this is True North Podcast with Pastor Snyder. So I'm going to put some scripture in there in Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 13 on the power of understanding. Is happy is the man that findeth wisdom and the man that getteth understanding. So the Bible is telling us that we need to get some understanding about our surroundings, perhaps understanding of who we are, what has happened in our past that is causing us to do what we do in our lives. And so I want to go over just a little bit, and then we're going to dive into the content today. Again, Discovering the Beast, the Power of Understanding, Chapter 1 of this book. And then Chapter 2, today's subject, Starve the Beast. In other words, we're going to look into the environment that you live in and what is the trigger that's happening, that's flipping your switch. Next week, we're going to talk about how the beast works, emotional mechanics, and then into the beastie's game. In other words, the blame and responsibility, getting into the blame game. That's just a couple of episodes ahead, and so stay with us. Don't forget to download the episodes from your favorite podcast listening platform, whether that's Spotify, Apple, Google. We're everywhere, folks. And of course, as a default, you can always go to truenorthdfw.org, and that is our website. All of our episodes are listed there, plus much, much more. You can also purchase the book at truenorthdfw.org. Click the link, Control the Beast. Okay, so let's dive into the content today, and that is we need to take a hard look at our environment. And again, as I mentioned last week, and I also talk about this in the class that I do, the course that I give, we are products of our environment. And I usually ask the question, are you a product of your environment, true or false? And most of the time I get the answer true. It's very true. Some people think, no, you got to have a strong mind. And sure, you got to have a strong mind, but there are some things that you just as strong as mind as you can get, you're still going to be influenced by your surroundings. So we are products of our environment. The environment that you were in as a child has formed the person that you are today. whether it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, things that's happened, good or bad, plus or minus, positive or negative, has formed the person that you have become today. Also, we need to understand the kind of environment that you live in right now is forming the person that you're going to become a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So today we're going to look into your environment. What's going on in your life? What's happening? What's pressuring you? What is influencing you? Whether it's a positive or a negative, what's going on inside your life? Now, one thing that I'll repeat throughout these series of podcasts to go over the book, Control the Beast, is that we've got to realize the negative emotions like anger is always a secondary emotion. There's always a primary. So the primaries are loneliness, depression, fear, stress, and the big kahuna, frustration. When frustration is not taken care of, it escalates to anger. When anger is not taken care of, then it escalates to rage. And then if that's not taken care of, it gets real ugly and goes to blind rage where people I had one client that did $5,000 worth of damage to his mother's kitchen in a fit of blind rage. And when they approached him and said, "You did that," he vehemently denied that he did all that damage because he blacked out. It's blind rage. And so they don't even remember. They can't comprehend it. They deny it because they're blacked out. They're just ripping and roaring because of their rage. And so we hope that you don't get there. But again, it all starts with a primary emotion that is just pestering, just aggravating, frustrating, just feeling every day. And again, it starts to build up the pressure. The pressure cooker is rising. And so we've got to take care of it now. And today we're going to look into that. So there are also two areas that input into this, whether you're feeling angry, whether you're feeling frustrated, whether you're feeling stressed. The first is external. And that is, of course, your surroundings, the people that are in your life, the things that you're trying to manage, the items that you're having to deal with, whether it's relatives, friends, coworkers, acquaintances. The second is composed of genetic. It is the external factor in the person's life. It is what we're made of. As we talked about last week in The Power of Understanding, that we are a product of the law of genetics. We get our hair color, our facial feature, our eye color, our build, and all of that through DNA, through genetics. And then there are inherited characteristics that are born into us, such as someone that is prone to anger, prone to all of these negative emotions, because that has happened generation after generation after generation. And somewhere, somebody has got to put the brakes on and take responsibility and fix it. And that's what our hope is here on this podcast, is that we help you fix the problem. So what we're going to do today is deal with the external, the environmental factors that initiate, aggravate, and ultimately trigger perhaps violence in your home. Now, there is an old saying, and it's very true. It applies to children, and that is, children do what they see and say what they hear. You send your child to school and come back speaking language that you don't want them to know, you don't want them to say, but they learn it anyway. Whatever children see, they repeat. Whatever they hear, they say. There is not much difference between a child and an adult. We do what we see and say what we hear. The only difference between a child and an adult, it takes us longer to adapt. Children adapt instantly. When my son was a boy who's 22 now, but when he was like 3, 4, I don't know, maybe it was 5, Spider-Man came out, the first movie, and we sat down and watched Spider-Man. It wasn't 5 minutes after that movie was over, he's running around the house acting like he's throwing webs all over the house, acting like Spider-Man. Very influential. But again, adults do the same thing. It just takes a little time. Now, there's another old saying is that garbage in, garbage out. What we put in will come out eventually. So if a person sees violence, hears violence, then they're going to react violently, or at best accept or condone violence in others. A violent and confrontational behavior, ladies and gentlemen, is not the norm. In fact, that's what we're experiencing in our world, in our country today, with all these riots and burning buildings and all of that. Finally, people are getting sick of it and saying, no, we don't want that violence in our world today. So the question that we need to ask ourselves right now is, what feeds these negative emotions? What kind of food is in our life? What is causing us to feel frustrated, stressed, and even angry? That's what you really need to get going in your mind right now. So what I'm going to cover here in the next few minutes is 6 of the top-rated triggers that is across the board in lives. Now, when I go over these 6 triggers, maybe it's not in your life. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 are not. No, that's not me. But the other 2 or 3 may be. Or all 6 of them may not be feeding the beast in your life. But at least I'm going to get you thinking toward that direction to hopefully make you aware of what's going on in your life. What is triggering your negative emotions in your life, okay? Now, if our home, if our environment, if our castle, our oasis is filled with material that condones, encourages, or even generates these negative emotions, such as anger, or before that, frustration and loneliness and depression and all of that, then it's pretty logical to assume that anger or these negative emotions will increase. So again, we need to look at where are the triggers in our life that's causing us to have a bad day. All right. Number 1, the first trigger. Here we go. And this is really a popular trigger. And again, for all of the ladies that are in the audience, when I say the word, don't tense up. I will be very discreet, and I am going to try not to embarrass somebody in our audience. But the number 1 trigger of the 6 most common triggers is pornography. Okay. It is really, it's more than books, magazines, videos, pictures. You know the thing. You know the whole pornography addiction, and it is a problem in America, in our world today. I mean, unfortunately, we have preachers that are addicted to pornography, and their ministry crumbles around them because of that. So again, looking at triggers. So, as I said, pornography is more than books and magazines and videos and pictures. It is a mindset. Now, sex is a good thing. I mean, God created it in the genetics of a man and a woman. It's a desire. In our marriage retreats that we do, we make it very clear that sex is not the only thing in marriage. It's a byproduct. Love is the main event in a marriage, in a relationship. And so again, this stuff, pornography, interferes with the natural flow of how we are built genetically. All right. Now, this pornography thing is really a mindset There, and of course, there's different categories of pornography. There is the soft porn, the hardcore porn, there's the sadistic, and the list goes on and on. Pornography has no positive effect when it comes to relationships. And again, Control the Beast, the book, again, is not just about anger. It's about relationships. It's about self-esteem. It's about cleaning up our environment. It's about mechanisms and things that we can put in place to make our day a whole lot better. So pornography, again, has no positive effect. Instead, it really encourages violence, because you know how addictions go. Addiction is something that you cannot get away from. I'm not addicted. You could be addicted to coffee. If you can't do without coffee in one day, you got an addiction going on. Okay, I got a coffee addiction. But then there are other addictions that does much more damage in our life. If you get an addiction to meth, you're going to destroy yourself. Okay, so addiction by simple definition is anything that you cannot break. It's a habit you cannot break in your life. You got an addiction. Now that could be an okay addiction. It could be a good addiction. There are some good things that we can enjoy and can't get away from that can be an addiction in our life. And so again, we see that. So it also establishes a mindset that leaves the norm and causes us to do things that are not normal. And it promotes selfish emotions. It centers on self-gratification and not mutual satisfaction. It feeds the dark side of the human nature. So with couples, it produces frustration, anger, and when one doesn't want to cooperate, then guess what we have? Rejection. So let's play that scenario out for a minute. Husband is watching porn, looking at magazines, whether online or a physical magazine. Can't let wifey know because wifey's going to get very, very upset and have a big problem with that. So he's doing it in secret. And anything you do something that is wrong in secret, shame comes with it. But, he's watching a porn film and sees this, whatever. She's on a trapeze or something. And so comes home and says, honey, let's try this. And she doesn't want to get her body twisted up in a pretzel to satisfy your wild things that you saw on that porn film. And so she says, no, I can't, I'm not swinging from the ceiling, or I'm not doing this or whatever. Now we have rejection. And when that happens over and over and over, the rejection turns into frustration. The frustration then turns into anger. And now we are fighting, and she can't figure out what's wrong with you, husband. So now we've got a conflict that the other has no idea why. And when the why is not answered, now we have suspicion. You see how it goes. It just cascades into other issues. All right. So this may be a trigger. And before we move on to number 2, I'd always give an example. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy named Ted Bundy. January of 1989, he hit the electric chair in Florida after killing and raping 32 women. And the last victim was a 12-year-old girl. Ted Bundy started out with a group of guys, friends, as a kid. He lived in the state of Washington. He grew up in a solid Christian home. Mom and dad married, happily married, all their life until the day they passed. And it was just the perfect setting. But yet, playing out in the neighborhood, in the back alley, in the neighbor's trash, they found some magazines. So, all the grade school kids, ooh, wow, But Ted got hooked. And so the soft porn, as addiction goes, wasn't flipping the switch anymore. So he went to hardcore porn. And then long before he knows it, that doesn't flip the switch. And then he went into the next level. And then finally, his addiction was so strong, he reached out for his first victim, a beautiful college student. And he was charming, and he had a personality. In fact, he was the assistant DA of the state of Washington. He knew the law. That's how he dodged it for so long. And then he just got sloppy, and that's how he got caught on his last victim. But the point is the addiction, the trigger he never took care of. All right, number 2, violent videos, television programming. Of course, most men and women are drawn to action. I love a good action movie. I love to, see that, and it's okay. But there's a difference between action and violence. Okay, you see a good guy film, where there's some, a little bit of fighting going on, or some martial arts going on, or some Fast and Furious stuff and all of that. Okay. But there's a big difference, ladies and gentlemen, between action and violence. Anytime women or children are depicted as helpless victims or obstructions to gratification that needs to be removed because it is a violence stimulator. Okay, we're all talking about equal rights in our world today and all of that, but we've got to realize that, in this stuff, if you look closely, the helpless little woman has to always be rescued, has to have the hero come in. And I again, you understand the storyline, but after so many episodes or films, movies that we watch, an attitude starts to develop. Say what you want, think what you're going to think right now, but the longer you think about it, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, here's something that we need to understand. The mind, the heart, and the mouth are connected. What we see and what we hear is what we eventually feel becomes an emotion. The longer we feel that emotion and hear the philosophy backing it up, then it becomes a part of our belief system. And then the longer we feel it, it will come out of our mouth. So we've got to be careful what we ingest into our minds, because it's going into the heart and becoming what we feel or believe. And then the longer we feel that, it will start coming out in our speech, and we'll speak it. That's why, as a pastor, I'm telling our folks, get to church. You need to hear some good stuff. If we hear the Bible, listen to it, and it becomes a belief. It increases our faith in God. And therefore, we start speaking faith because we are ingesting emotionally the Word of God. And so, again, the opposite also is the same principle. So violent videos, television programming, number 2. All right, number 3, and I know this may seem a little bit of, really? But it is a trigger. It's number 3 on the chart. Magazines, different publications. Magazines are written from a writer point of view. It's the way they see it. The information that you're reading from that magazine is coming through a filter of the author's mind. Okay, so again, depending on what kind of magazines you're reading, are you getting the tabloids in the grocery line while you're waiting to pay for your groceries? Inquiring minds want to know, and so you buy the Inquirer or whatever other ridiculous publication that has been sued gazillions of times because they're publishing articles about people that are literally not true. Okay, number 3, language. Language is powerful. There's a critical area that we really need to watch is our language. It's not, listen to me now, I'm getting to drop something here. It's not what you say, it's how you say it that makes all the difference in the world. The way we speak to each other is extremely, absolutely important. If we talk down to someone or be critical of each other, that becomes a seedbed of bitterness, frustration, and anger. I believe in this audience today, nobody wants to be talked down to. criticized. Are you kidding me? Think a little bit, okay? Just think about what you just said. If that's a constant diet, then folks, you're going to spur some anger, some frustration, some bitterness. If you keep yelling at one another, that will become the expected norm. I've had parents come to me saying, I can't handle my kids anymore. They keep yelling and they keep saying bad things. Well, what are you saying? Come to find out, the parents are cussing and screaming at one another. Kids do what they say. Kids say what they hear and do what they see. And so again, you're influencing. Number 5, and this is you're going to roll your eyes at this one, maybe raise your eyebrows, but number 5, professional wrestling. Okay, that's on the chart. I didn't put that there. This is research. Now, again, it may sound a little ridiculous, but it has an effect on us. There's court cases all over the place where children, teenagers, sometimes young adults have picked somebody up and body slammed them and killed them or seriously injured them. One case broke their back. And guess what? They went to jail. And so it's not the expected norm. And a steady diet of that. And again, I've handled situations in families where kids are constantly being violent, hitting and body slamming or trying to. Come to find out, that was in the picture. So it's viable. It's real. Number 6, and this is something that is extremely powerful, music. Okay. And we're almost out of time here, folks. We've got to hurry along so that we can keep it inside 30 minutes and you can get about your day and think about the material that you're listening. Number 6, okay, is music. Again, I'm a pastor, so I'm going to go here. When we go to church, in a class, in an open session with people, I ask them, when we go to church, what do we hear? Several people say, well, music, songs. Yes, you do. What else do you hear? Well, finally, we get to what we really hear. We hear a sermon, a message, okay? And depending on the frequency, whether you go every week, whether you go Sunday and a midweek like a Wednesday, the more you hear the sermon, the more you increase in your faith. And you want to make changes because you're hearing the inspiration coming from the Bible, okay? And my next question then, everybody kind of shakes their head. Yeah, I see that. The next question is, what is a song? A song is a message. A song is a set of words they call lyrics. And it's usually written by somebody that has had an experience. And they wrote a song about it. Okay. Country and Western's the best example. I'm crying tears in my beer over you. My girlfriend left and my wife too. Stole my pickup truck with my dog. I mean, just, that kind of thing. And I'm not making fun. I'm just using an example. I enjoy a little country music now and then. But anyway, it's a message. And here's the powerful point. We go to church on Sunday, if we get there, and maybe a Wednesday night. That's once or twice a week, maybe hopefully 4 times in a month, or 2 or 3 times in a month, that we hear a sermon and it increases our faith. But a song today, we've got earbuds and we've got Bluetooth connections. We're always listening to music, and it depends on the kind of music that we're listening to and the messages inside that song that may be affecting us in a positive way, or it may be in a negative way. Again, folks, we've got to realize that music is a very powerful medium. Whatever message we are listening to is what is influencing our minds and our emotions. So again, these are the 6 triggers that we talk about in chapter 2 of Starve the Beast. Now, as we get ready to close out, which we just got a couple of minutes left, I want you to this week think about triggers. What's What's sparking me? What is poking at me? What is aggravating me? Now, again, don't attack it. Just realize it, and we can work on it. Okay? And the best thing is that we'll learn in a future podcast is diffuse the situation. Don't build up a violent confrontation by filling your surroundings with violent stimulators or triggers that's causing that little thorn prick in your heart, in your emotions, in your mind. So again, your assignment this week is to look for triggers and then starve it out, because the beast can't survive if you don't feed the beast. So again, folks, until next week, thank you for joining us here at True North Podcast with Pastor Esnyder. I encourage you to go to truenorthdfw.org, click on Control the Beast, and buy the book. Read it as we go over each chapter during this podcast. Until then, may God richly bless you and heal you in your life.
Thank you for joining us at True North Podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio or any other podcasting platform. If you want to have any questions, visit us at truenorthdfw.org. We'll catch y'all next week.